Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sprites of Life podcast. I'm Chris,
And I'm Don.
and Lucas decided to skip today, so it's our turn to carry the load, Don. Well, I figured if it's just the two of us, let's lean on something that I feel like you know pretty well, which is fishing. We've done fishing before, so I thought we could do it a little bit different. You are a purveyor of ice fishing, are you not?
A bit, given that I live in Florida, it's kind of a difficult discipline to really pursue.
Ice fishing isn't popular in Florida, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely not the most popular form of fishing for sure.
But you do go ice fishing, what, like, you go on a trip every year, right?
Yeah, I have a friend in Utah, and I go out there and I do some ice fishing every year while visiting him.
Nice. Well, I thought it's still fishing, but different enough that we could probably cover a little bit of new things around fishing, and we'll see what we get. But in lieu of science news this week, because we have a fun announcement, Don, tell everybody how you did in Sacramento.
Yeah, so not the week so 2 weeks ago from now, I attended the Sacramento Regional Championships with two of my friends from college for VGC, and I did better than I thought. I got top 16 out of a field of 590. So I was really happy with that result. I used a fairly popular team composition right now. Um, it got second at LAIC. I actually didn't try the team till Friday before the tournament, but the people that play the game are familiar with this now. Probably it's Pelipper, Archaludon, Rain with Ursaluna, Dragonite, Golden Go, and Sinistra. And it's just a really strong, well built team. It was originally built by a Japanese player that goes by Rizabeth or Rizabeth. I know they've done really well in the best of one in-game ladder with it. But you can sort of go, it's a pretty fast Ursaluna, so you can go Trick Room mode with Sinistra Ursaluna, or go like a fast mode with Pelipper and Dragonite, both have Tailwind. And then Archaludon is just really good in rain, and Golden Go is just good.
Didn't some dude have that similar team that finished in top 8, right?
Yeah, at the tournament, it had just looking at top 16. I know it had Aaron Brock finished top 8 with it. And then I know Alex Underhill got top 16 as well, and Joji Kaida got top 16 as well with a slightly different version. He had an Incineroar over Golden Go, but that was also similar. But there were some cool teams there at that tournament. We've really seen Male and Didi on the big rise. Other cool stuff. My friend Eric Schrader, who hasn't played competitively since 2017, showed up and got top 8. It's was deeply frustrating. I was happy for him, but it is also deeply frustrating. And he had Excadrill Tyranitar,
Yeah.
which is sort of a cool pairing we haven't seen recently. With also Indeedee, Male Sneasler, or Male Indeedee Sneasler and Maushold Annihilate. So it's really just a diabolical um 2-2-2.
I see that uh Ugarte had a Hisuian Typhlosion and
Yeah,
second.
yeah. Joseph Ugarte, he's been on that team for a while. Hisuian Typhlosion Jumpluff. It's a similar but very different team at the same time from the team that just won the Latin American International, which was Charizard Jumpluff.
What's the deal with the Torkoal on the team?
So Torkoal sets the sun. Um,
Okay, so you're not looking for any sort of
so the
speed
two
control with it.
versions of the team are different, but a big thing with the Torkoal is it has the item Eject Pack. So when a stat is dropped, it switches out. So either it's you can lead it, and if they lead, say, an Incineroar, and Intimidate goes off, you still get the Sun up, but also you instantly switch out. So then you get a free switch to like one of your Sun boosted sweepers, like either Typhlosion or Charizard, depending on the team, or even Ursaluna, and then you can Tailwind with the jump off. And then also we had last weekend we had the Stuttgart regionals over in Germany, and there was a certain tree that made day two that I'm sure you were very excited about.
I love everybody who plays the tree. Although I might have to steal this team just because I really love playing with Arboliva.
It is the highest achieving tree so far, I believe.
What other trees? I guess Trevenant.
Well, I think Trevenant might actually have a higher regional Trevenant does have a I mean, of this particular tree
of
team, I
this
should say.
of this season.
Yeah, so
Where
Arabal yeah, and it's not even other trees. Exeggutor has had a better finish this season. Um, the best Aribalva?
yeah,
Arbalva?
I say Arboliva.
Arboliva, that's how you say it. Yep. Um, made day 2 at Stuttgart. Very cool set with Assault Vest, with Terra Blast, Earth Power, and
And
Mirror
Seed
Coat.
Sower.
Yeah, so it's actually looking at the team, it's a really cool answer to Psy Spam type teams because the Pelipper is Choice Scarf and it has Surf. So you can click Choice Scarf Surf, you'll take almost no damage because the tree is very bulky.
Yeah.
And then you overwrite their Psychic Terrain, and you can just consistently do that. So you don't have to switch to change the opposing terrain. So I can see how that could be very effective in some situations.
I was gonna say I don't think that Sun is too overly prevalent too with having the harvest ability.
Yeah, it hasn't had. I mean, there's been a few very good Sun teams. Really, it's almost really just I guess two Sun teams that are very similar. But otherwise, we have seen a rise. These last two regionals, we've seen High Dragon has had a sharp rise, top cutting both of them.
Not Roaring Moon.
Not legal right now, but
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. That's right, because was it Series H?
yeah, Rio Reg H. So no legendaries or paradoxes, but we will be
Mm.
going back to Regulation G, January 6th.
Well, I'm happy about the treat. I'm also happy that Sinisha has been having such a good show
Yeah,
of late.
Sinistra has really been. I was really impressed with Sinistra, and I've been on this podcast as a Sinistra hater multiple times and said it was only a concept mon and that it would never actually be good. So I would like to formally apologize to Sinistra and all of its fans.
It has a move that damages, heals, and burns.
Yeah, that's a pretty good move.
That's pretty stupid. Like everyone's complaining about Dire Claw, but I feel like Matcha Gacha is equally worse or
Yeah, but it
equally
can
as bad.
miss.
All right. Well, let's go on and just jump into the topic, Don. But to start, I don't want to say explain fishing, but can you talk about one the reason for ice fishing and how it is different from what someone might think about as traditional fishing?
All right, so I guess we'll get a little bit into the history of ice fishing, and I will say, looking into video games that have ice fishing, so this is going to be sort of slightly more of a hypothetical thing, mainly in reference to Pokemon. Not a lot of games that have ice fishing that aren't just direct fishing games, I've
Mhm.
found. There's sort of a case for like Animal Crossing in the wintertime. I think the little pond kind of freezes, right?
Yeah, but there's not like ultimate bass hunter ice fishing.
That's actually like some of the only games are like Rapala fishing that then have ice fishing levels. Like a lot of video games have fishing mini games,
Mhm.
and we've covered that before. Final Fantasy, Zelda, Grand Theft Auto.
Assassin's
There's
Creed.
there's not a lot of games with ice fishing mini games specifically that I've been able to find.
Yeah.
So ice fishing does date back. It's so obviously ice fishing, like every other form of fishing, initially started as a subsistence method. If you were in an area that was predominantly reliant on fish, but also were in like the upper part of the northern hemisphere in particular, that water is going to freeze if you're in a freshwater habitat. You still want those fish. So you got to figure out how to get those fish. The earliest instances of ice fishing date back over 2,000 years ago, primarily North America and like Scandinavia areas, but pretty much any circumpolar area has some ice fishing dating back. And originally it was they think it was either netting, where like long trenches would be cut in the ice, or two holes far away with ropes fed for gill nets, or spearing. And we have some very old basically decoys from the Pacific Northwest, where you would make your hole in the ice, and it's still done in modern day as well, where there's a like a little hut built over it, and to keep it dark, so then the light will filter through the ice and you can see underwater. And there's some very like hundreds of years old like basically decoy fish, where like just like a carved wooden fish that you would just kind of suspend in the water in your ice fishing hole. So with an actual fish like a pike or a sturgeon would come to investigate the decoy, it could be speared. And that's some of probably the oldest ice fishing methods that we know of.
So when you well, this might be a I would say there's no stupid questions. Uh what is the water like under the ice?
So the water is very cold, as you would imagine. It's fresh, and the most ice fishing takes place in fresh water. So we're gonna kind of focus on that. Like I said, the American Midwest has some very early instances. Same with central Canada, but the water's obviously if it's liquid water, it's the surface might be 32 or below because it's frozen solid, but the water below will be, you know, 30 could be 33 degrees or slightly warmer below the thermocline. Occasionally there'll be pockets where the water is warmer, but generally it's hovering just above freezing.
If like a lake freezes over and there's fish in the lake, can the fish just chill there under the ice for the duration of the frozen?
Yes and no. So when lakes freeze over, they become vulnerable to certain things. Well, one, depending on the thickness of the ice, how much snow's on top, photosynthesis can drastically decrease or kind of mainly stop if plants within the lake aren't able to get enough sunlight. Some of those plants will die, and their decomposition will further deplete the oxygen from the water. So you could have a scenario where if the ice is thick enough or dark enough, or if it's a long enough time period, the oxygen drop could negatively impact fish, and you could have die off within the lake. One thing that sort of helps this is that because fish are cold blooded, their metabolisms drop just dramatically in the winter when the water is really cold. They feed much less, they move much less, they're very lethargic, and their like metabolic requirements are much lower.
Interesting. And then the types of fish, what kind of fish are prevalent in the areas that you would go ice fishing in?
Pretty much anywhere that has fish and ice is viable ice fishing. Some species of fish are much more receptive than others. Obviously, some fish, if it's a more southern species that's maybe like right on the frost line, they might spend most of their winter just sort of existing, almost like in almost in like a torpor state, and they won't really want to feed at all. And then you have fish like say out west in the lakes. There's things like trout will still feed. I know in the Midwest, think fish like perch and walleye, and then you have the sort of cold water loving fish, something like a burbot. A burbot's actually a freshwater member of the cod family, and burbot have a property in their blood that acts almost like an antifreeze. Their spawning season is in the winter. So burbot really like very very close to freezing, very cold water. They've become established in the Great Lakes. They're not originally in the Great Lakes, but they are a circumpolar species. In Lake Superior, burbot will live in the summer. They will be found below 300 meters. So they're very tolerant of very low oxygen and so that's almost 1,000 feet deep.
Um, this is like the derpiest fish.
They're kind of goofy.
Also, oh man, big. It's big too.
They're pretty large. Said they're a member of they're I think the only freshwater member of the cod family. Yeah, their spawning season prefers water temperatures between 1 and 4 degrees Celsius. So while every other fish, typically in a freshwater lake, is borderline comatose or just sort of barely moving, burbot are actively swimming around and spawning.
They know when they need to get active, to say the least.
Yes, and their burbot are an issue, so they are sort of globally distributed, but in very northern ranges. But they've been introduced into more southern lakes, and they're extremely fecund. They have massive clutches of eggs. A female burbot could produce over 3 million eggs. So they are a large sort of invasive problem in some of the more southern parts of their range where they've been
And
introduced.
they also seem to be active at a time when other fish might not be as active.
Yeah, and they are, despite their sort of goofy look, they are very aggressive predators.
Oh, really? Are they like getting other fish or what are they eating?
Basically, whatever fits in their mouth.
Classic fish.
Classic fish. But yeah, they do get fairly large for a freshwater fish. I think they can exceed about 20 pounds. That's like a really big one.
Have you caught these guys out in Utah?
I have not. There's some ponds where they are, or some lakes and reservoirs where they're established. But I haven't actually fished in any of them where they are. Where they are established, you're supposed to always harvest them, never put them back because they are a invasive problem. They are also supposed to be very good to eat. Burbots, I would like some sort of burbot Pokemon. I think we're missing some cold water fish ice types.
Well, before we get to the Pokemon, I got one more question for you. So if you were to go ice fishing, what do you need to bring with you, and how do you pick the best spot?
Without getting too into the weeds, since this isn't really like a fishing podcast,
Yeah.
the best answer is it depends. Um,
Okay.
but I'll try to sort of. So typically with ice fishing, ideally you would like to have some sort of shelter, like a little pop-up tent, but that's not really necessary. Um, some way to get through the ice, tradition like modern methods like augers are popular, but back in the day people would take you just use an iron or even like really want to get old school like a stone rod and chip through the ice. Typically, ice fishing rods are much smaller and shorter than a normal fishing rod because you're sort of close to the hole in the ice. And the line used for ice fishing is often much, much lighter than normal fishing line because the water is often clear. At least where I go, the water is very clear. But because the fish are so cold and typically aren't feeding very heavily, they'll be very selective. So if you're using a heavier type of fishing line that makes your lure, your bait just seem a little more artificial, the fish are more likely to refuse it. So very light line and gear is often preferred. But and also because the fish are so cold, they're less the fight is less energetic because they don't have the energy to really put up a really strong struggle. So you can get away with lighter line for bigger fish than you otherwise could.
Are you using any kind of different bait? Like if you're fishing the same fish winter versus summer, are you using a different kind of bait or is it not matter?
Um, it does sort of matter, generally speaking, again, because it's like I said, cold water. The fish are lower. You're gonna want to use sort of a lower energy presentation. Like let's say if you were fishing for we'll say bass, and maybe in the summer you're using like a big, like let's say you're using a lure that looks like another fish and you're casting it out and you're reeling it in pretty quickly because the water's warm and the fish are being aggressive. If the water's really cold, they're not gonna want to chase something fast. They physically won't be able to chase something fast. So typically you're using a smaller lure or bait and you're presenting it in a way. Sometimes you're just dropping it down, even if it's not even an actual like bait, like it's like a lure. You could just drop it down and leave it still, or just very small like up and down motions because the fish are cold blooded, so they just won't be able to chase a fast moving bait, and it wouldn't be a good use of their energy resources because it's a low energy time for them. So the sort of cost benefit for them is much higher to chase prey.
Thank you for that overview. Let's go jump into some Pokemon stuff. And before we get into the actual Mons, we never really get to talk about the trainers, Don, but I feel like this trainer has a very special spot in your heart. So I want to take the Fisherman, the iconic Pokemon Fisherman, the one who always gets really grumpy at you and challenges you with a tentacool in the early days.
My favorite one is still the guy. For some reason, he's burned in my head, maybe because I'm playing back through Gen 3. But there's a guy in Dewford Town who's like, if I have to go to the washroom, who will watch my rod? Like, what happens if I get a bite?
Is that a common problem for fishermen?
It's something you have to think about.
So, if this is our traditional Pokemon Fisherman, how would you adapt him? What would you change to make him optimal for ice fishing?
Obviously, he's gonna need some warmer gear, than his typical things, or ideally, some higher waterproof boots. I think he's got some boots on, right? I haven't looked at the latest
Yeah.
Fisherman Sprite.
Oh, I did drop it in the chat.
Okay, so looking at his setup, honestly, he's got something to sit on. A big part of that is not being in the snow. Um, he's got some waterproof boots. That's key. I would definitely put a jacket on him. He's got a vest. That vest might be warm, but he might want to layer, a jacket or two over that.
Some long sleeves.
If he's using a like a pop-up ice fishing tent or a cabin, more permanent structure, it does get surprisingly warm in there, even just from body heat, even if you don't actually have a heater. He would probably want to downsize his fishing rod significantly because you want to be able to sort of see what's going on, and having the sensitivity of like a very short, thinner rod is beneficial for ice fishing. And I know in here he's got a bobber on. In my experience, you're typically not really using a bobber for ice fishing. There's some specialized things. There's a thing called a tip up that people use. It's basically a little spring-loaded fishing rod, and you can set several out with your bait. And when a fish bites it, a little flag pops up, and then you have to run across the ice really fast, as fast as you can, to get to the tip up and get your hands on the line before the fish gets away. And it's a really great way to fall and hurt yourself. And then one thing with ice fishing to keep in mind is you do have to keep in mind safety. You are on frozen water, and if stuff goes poorly, it can go very poorly. So I'd maybe give him some ice spikes. They're just like little metal chopstick looking things. You can put them on like a lanyard on each wrist, and then if you were to fall through the ice, you can use those to sort of spike yourself in and sort of stop yourself from slipping all the way. So yeah, maybe give him some safety features.
I was thinking that while fishermen are predominantly using water types, I was debating if we wanted to make them water steel specialists.
I do feel like a lowland sand slash would be very useful for making a hole in the ice to fish.
I was like a lowland sand slash. I feel like escadrille
Yeah, anything that's got a good drilling motion for sure.
and some.
Dunsparce would actually be great with his tail.
Oh, it's true, Dunsparce. I was thinking Rhyhorn, but I feel like he would drill into it and then just die.
He seems quite heavy too. How heavy is Rhyhorn?
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about the weight on the ice.
I mean, ice is very ice will on one way know the depth of your ice, like PSA. Do your research on that before you blindly commit. But ice, thinner ice than you think can support more weight than you think. But it's also really not something you want to play games with.
So Rhyhorn and Rhydon are about 250 pounds.
That's really not that much.
Yeah,
In, in
that's like that could be the fisherman.
yeah, that could very easily be the fisherman. I do remember the first time I ever went ice fishing with my friend. We went to this lake in Utah. Neither of us had ever been, and we get to this lake and we go, "You think the ice is thick enough?" And then as we say it, a car just drives past us, doing at least 10 miles an hour, drives down the boat ramp, and then just drives us out onto the ice without ever slowing down. And we
You're like,
go,
yeah.
"Yeah, I think it's thick enough."
Also, Excadrill is like 80 pounds. Dunsparce is 30 pounds.
Dunsparce is hollow. Dunsparce isn't that small, is it? Isn't it like 5 feet?
Yeah, it's about yeah, it's 411.
Do you know the Dundunsparce mousehold theory?
No.
So the extra segment Dundunsparce is about as rare as the three family mousehold is, which implies that that's where the fourth
In
mousehold is.
Dunsparce?
Yes, it ate them, and that's why it's got the extra segment. It's like 1 in 10 Dundunsparce has the extra segment, and 1 in 10 mousehold is three family instead of four.
I gotcha. Okay. So three segment Dunsparce is 104 pounds. Ooh, wait, let's test this. How much does it? So mousehold is just uh a bunch of tandem mouse, right?
Yes. Well, two of them
Oh,
are smaller, so I don't know how we do the weight of mousehold.
all right. Okay. Well, a family of three is 5 pounds, and a family of four is 6 pounds. So that would imply
The
that
baby
one
mouse is a pound.
baby mouse is a pound. So there's two of them. So that would be 2 pounds, which would then cut it down to four. So an adult one is about 4 pounds. And the weight difference in the Dunsparces is about 20 pounds.
Maybe each Dundunsparce eats a lot of mousehold.
It's a lot of mouse holds. Okay, but so we have basically you'd probably want to bring some kind of drill. Oh, I feel like A slash. That was the other one we said. I feel like A slash is actually really heavy.
But he levitates. He doesn't count. He's a ghost.
Not even that, it's 121 pounds. So all of these ones that we would want to bring on the ice are actually pretty.
I think we've established a while ago that Pokemon have a an issue with density sometimes.
Yeah. So they would be pretty solid ones to bring out. Would it be bad though? Would A slash be bad to bring because you're just adding cold into an already cold environment?
I mean, maybe, or he's just sort of neutrally cold. I do think there's also an argument for a Pokemon Luxray, because Luxray can see through walls with his Luxray vision, I guess that he has. And ice fishing has really been revolutionized by electronics, sonar, things like flashers that let you see where fish are, because all you can drill is most states have a limit on how big of a ice fishing hole you can drill. And if you're gonna spear in the ice, you're not making a 4 foot by 4 foot by hole every time at first. You're making a small hole to check. You see what the bottom's like, see if you see any fish or detect any fish. And having a way to detect fish through the ice before committing to the spot, much like electronics would. I feel like Luxray would be an excellent ice fishing teammate.
So for actual Pokemon, I was thinking we could maybe look at water ice Pokemon. And then in looking at that, there are not a lot of water ice Pokemon.
There's Dugong, there's Lapras, and there's like Celio and Walrein. Is Spheal also water ice?
I think Spheal is water ice.
Oh, and there's the fish. There's the dumb fish.
Arctovish?
Yes.
Yes, Arctovish.
I always think Titan is water ice, but he's not.
There's a lot that you would want to be. Oh yeah, so the entire Spheal line, water ice.
Oh, Iron Bundle.
Iron Bundle is water ice. Dugong, Cloyster, and Lapras.
Gen 1 really went crazy with the water ice types.
Well, it's because they had no other check Dragonite. And then I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So I feel like the Spheal line is cheating, but technically that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 water ices, which for a dual typing of one of the most popular typings is
Ice
really
is like one
not
of
that
the
much.
ice I think is one of the rarest typings though.
I meant water.
I know water is, but I think ice is one of the rarest, so I guess that balanced it out.
Yeah, it balances out for sure. But so of those, I think only one of those really classifies as a fish, which would be Arctovish,
Yeah.
which is, as we have talked about, is basically a freak of nature that doesn't actually exist because some mad scientist just slapped together skeletons and called it a Pokemon. The one thing that I was found interesting about the idea of this Pokemon is that it actively freezes Pokemon, or it freezes its prey around it. So is it just like collectively freezing or selectively freezing pockets of water within the water?
I guess so. And in a way this kind of reminds me a little bit of Burbot, and some of the other fish that I've mentioned that have a sort of natural resistance to very cold water, thanks to certain enzymes in their blood. They're just able to operate on a higher level than their prey is. So that's sort of like freezing the items around it, I
Uh,
guess.
this is terrifying. Do you know where Arctovish's mouth is?
On top of its head, you can see it in the picture.
I'd never thought that that was its mouth.
I mean,
That's hor
there are fish with extremely vertically oriented mouths, though.
So the Pokédex says that it has trouble eating the prey that it freezes because the mouth on the top of its head really doesn't allow it to.
Yeah, it's an inconvenience. There are fish that feed off the surface and have really weird mouth structures like that. Not ones that are giant predators that do that.
It also seems appropriate. You talked about that the fish in the wintertime are slow.
Arctovish
Arctovish
is
is.
huge.
How big is it?
It's 6 feet long and 380 pounds.
Why is it so big?
It's huge. I'm afraid of this thing now.
I was gonna say is that it's actually really slow.
Yeah, because it's cold, but it does have
Yeah,
slush rush.
but does slush rush matter if you're that slow?
It makes it fast enough.
But like, how fast can it be? How fast can it get
All right, let's look at hits 117 max speed at level 50.
in slush rush?
That's faster than Dragapult.
So it's faster than Dragapult in snow.
Yes.
That's scary, actually. This 400-pound monstrosity just coming full force at you. I just really just kind of like, I don't like looking at it, and I don't think that the other water ice types really speak to the water fishing experience because you're not going fishing for a Spheal or going fishing for a Lapras.
Yeah. At least there's certain treaties now that would make it very difficult to go fishing for a Spheal or a Celio.
Wait, what tree?
Treaties. I said the Marine Mammal Protection Act would
Oh yeah. I thought you were making a tree joke. If we were gonna add a water ice type Dawn, what would you want to see?
All right. So I've mentioned the Burbot because I do think they're kind of fun. And they're kind of goofy. If I was just gonna make a crazy water ice type though, are you familiar with a brinicle or brinesicle?
Is it like an icicle? Is it like a saltwater icicle?
Yes, but no. Sorry, one second. So they move very slowly, but it's an underwater icicle, right? And there's one of them reaching the sea floor, and then when it touches, it causes like the ice to expand across the sea floor, and it's just like kills sloth just kills like a line of starfish.
Oh, wait, I think I found it. I think I found the video you're looking for.
It's definitely sped up because if the ice moved that fast, it'd be the
Yeah.
scariest thing ever.
I think the starfish moving that fast are the scariest thing ever.
Starfish are actual freak monster animals,
Yeah,
to be
this is
fair.
messed up. Okay, okay. So what are you doing with this Brinicle? What do you
I don't even know if this is really what I want to be my Pokemon pick. I just remembered them and I was like, I need to talk about this thing.
what if you what if you just got like went full silly and you made an ice terrain so that when it's hypothetically like touched the ground, ice terrain came out and there was like a 50-50 chance of Pokemon basically falling and damaging itself instead of
Well,
attacking.
I would like to give it some sort of freeze is too broken, but to bring back the frostbite mechanic, Legends of Arceus, and have
What
that
was the freeze one? What was the freeze mechanic?
it's burns, but it's like for special attack, I think.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay. Because special attack needs to be taken down a peg.
Yeah, yeah, it's special attack burn. And I think giving it a like a poison touch ability, but for frostbite,
What exactly is freezing to make this brinicle?
salt water.
But isn't it all salt water? Like, why is it freezing in this like specific formation?
So basically the seawater freezes at the ocean surface where it's the coldest, right? Because it's by the colder air. As it freezes, it's pushing the salt brine part, like the salt, out because the salt is not going to be part of the frozen water. I mean, it has, but the saline water that's being pushed out, because when you add salt to ice, you lower its freezing point.
Yeah.
So it's that now brine that's being pushed out is super cooled. So it's lower, it has a lower freezing point than the surrounding water. So it's touching the neighboring water and flash freezing it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. It kind of looks like an underwater tornado.
Yeah.
But okay, so we have this fun little feature. I'm not sure how you would make this anthropomorphic, but we've made things anthropomorphic before that shouldn't be. So what about some fit? Oh, I'd have thought about the Burbot. You had said that they are quite fecund.
Yes. You're
Basically
thinking like
meaning
regional
what?
wishy-washy? Think of like water ice
Yes.
wishy-washy equivalent?
Yeah, I was thinking that something like that, but also what if it had not swarm because that's already an ability, but like when it gets hit, it releases all of its young and it's basically like on touch infestation.
That's a very interesting idea. I like that.
And it could be a whatever divergent or convergent evolution of wishy-washy. I feel like infestation gets forgotten.
Yeah, it's I know occasionally will show up there'll be someone using like a weird arachnid set with it or like a really weird drag. I think Dragapult gets it. I think that's a thing.
Frostmoth gets it.
Yeah, a lot of the bugs get it.
And Diplin and Hydrapple get it.
There's also some of them are very goofy looking. There's the group of inspiringly named fish known as the ice fish. There's the ocellated ice fish and the blackfin ice fish. They're
Do
kind
they
of
have any
weird little guys.
do they have any cool little whoa? These are freaky. They look very face heavy.
Yeah, I mean, you're moving slow and you probably won't see a lot of food.
Is this the right one done? I just dropped in the
It
photo.
is. I'm sure it is. Yeah, that's one. They are interesting. So they're from off of Antarctica. And their blood is transparent. It doesn't have hemoglobin in it, and it's part of its like antifreeze properties.
Mm. Oh, yeah, that's I was gonna ask, how would you adapt those antifreeze bits into Pokemon? What would you want to
You could give it an
how would you make
ability. I mean, I would give it not thick fat per se. I would give it some sort of immunity. Maybe not. Honestly, a full immunity to ice would be very interesting, but also would kind of be redundant on a water ice type.
would that I mean, you're basically just talking about resistance to, freeze
Well,
dry.
if you're water ice, you would just be neutral
You're
though
neutral
too.
to freeze dry, yeah.
I maybe even have you be healed off of ice moves or something like that, or like get a stat boost.
So like water spout, but ice. Not water spout, water drain? Storm drain.
Storm drain, yeah, yeah, like a storm, like an ice type storm drain would be cool.
Or saps yeah, sap zipper, all that. I think
Mhm.
well, because the only so those type ones, we have sap zipper, we have storm drain, we have flash fire.
Yeah, these things like it cold. They're found on the seabed at 400 meters in Antarctica.
They like it cold. I think thick fat would also be wasted on it too, because that's just you're resisting ice, which you already would triple resist, and fire.
I think something that benefits from ice moves would be good. Maybe an attack boost, maybe a speed boost. I mean, they're so slow. It would be cool if they redirected ice moves. That would be a it would be a nice little kind of like a Gastrodon type guy, like a weird
Yeah,
little guy that lives in the mud
it would
and
be
redirects the scary attack for his buddy.
Dragonite's best friend.
It would. Oh, the Tokyo Sea Life Park has a male and female pair apparently. And that's the only place you can see live ones, I guess, other than the ocean floor in Antarctica.
They have really cool
And
fish.
they spawned in 2013.
Is that rare for them?
I think they spawn just in the winter or whenever they
Mm.
spawn. But I think it's the first captive spawning.
Well, we're coming up on time, Don, but is there any other cool water ice fishies that you would wanna to add in?
I mean, we already have a narwhal guy, and it's not really a fish anyway. There are, I do think the sort of Arctic and Antarctic specifically. I mean, we talked about freshwater with the burbot, saltwater with the ice fish. I would like a sturgeon. I know in parts of the Midwest, I think in particular Wisconsin, spearing for sturgeon is very popular, if very, very tightly regulated. And sturgeon are just a very cool fish. It would almost want to be like a fossil Pokemon, but not because I guess it would be like a freshwater
Yeah,
Relicanth.
and not rock type.
Hopefully not rock type. Sturgeon are a very old group of fish. And they're very cool with the bony plates. They have a fun, bottom of the face centered mouth to slurp things out of the mud. And some sturgeon get massive. So the largest sturgeon is, I think, the beluga sturgeon, which is in I think it's mainly in Asia. They can get like 2,600 pounds or over 3,000 pounds, and they'll go into like the Caspian, the Black, and the Adriatic seas. They're very endangered though. In North America, I think our largest one is the white sturgeon, which are western U.S. like Columbia River, things like that. But there's quite a few species of sturgeon in North America. The lake sturgeon is the main ice fishing sturgeon. Most sturgeon are protected to some degree or another. I'm not sure if you have them where you're at. I know Florida has the Gulf and the Atlantic sturgeons. Occasionally, ours kill people.
They like they like hit them?
Yes, occasionally so they don't like the sound of motors, I guess. And along like the I think there's only been one or two fatalities, but the sturgeons will free jump. I've actually seen them jump, but boat motors will startle them, and there have been instances of people water skiing or driving boats that have been hit by leaping sturgeon. And
That
you're
would
talking about a
be
fish
a
that can
horrible
exceed.
way to go.
You're talking about a fish that can exceed even a smaller one, 50 pounds or so,
Yeah.
covered with bony plates, hitting you while you're moving fast in a boat. Definitely cause some serious injuries.
One, I don't can't fathom why well, I guess bigger things than that can jump out of water, so I shouldn't question it. But also, like, I just these things seem to be, like, so mad at the boats.
And maybe they just don't like, they've been in that river for forever. Maybe they just don't like.
I just don't like the noise. I don't blame them. I get mad when there's noise outside my house. I would wanna do something with, like, the bony with the, like, bony armor type stuff. though, because I feel like that's such a distinctive feature of the sturgeon.
Not like rough skin. It's not really like a shark. You could do something wonderfully hacksy and have like I don't know what roll. It would have to be high enough to feel worth it, but also low enough that you feel like you get robbed every time it procs. Something that like gives you like, I don't know, say like a 20% chance to take reduced damage from physical hits. Or even just have well, you know what? There's Fluffy exists, and that just is a flat resistance. But it makes you weaker to fire. So they could do that and then have it make you weaker
I
to
mean, you could be weak to water.
yeah, they honestly, it almost wants to be a water rock or a water steel type. It could be water steel, and then like have it give it metal plates, and then because it has the metal plates, its ability can make it extra weak to electric, but otherwise have increased like an extra 50% reduction on physical hits or something.
Well, Don, thank you so much for jumping in and helping to bring some justice to the water ice types and or the lack of, because that is, as we found out, a very underrepresented dual typing in Pokemon. So hopefully we can get some more into this game at some point. But for
Yeah,
now,
it's a very good offensive typing. It's not a bad defense. Well, it's not the worst defensive typing.
I like that. I think my favorite types of dual typings are not the ones that take away resistances, but just make you better against the things that want to kill you. Like, it doesn't resist grass, but it will slap back.
Yes, those are fun. It adds like a little extra. It's kind of like it's kind of like Torterra and Infernape in that generation where
But all right, well, on that note, everybody, thank you so much for taking time to listen to this episode. Lucas will be back with our next episode out in 2 weeks. So hopefully we'll have one fun one planned for you all before the holiday season really picks up. Have a wonderful rest of your day or night, and we'll see you next time.